Sex on the train? There is no sex on the train. Fear of the opposite sex at the end.
I don't forgive. Not because I'm bitter, but because they stole my youth, my reputation, and my heart. That was the statement that silenced all of Hollywood during Diane Lane's final interview. The woman once hailed as one of the most iconic sex symbols of the 1980s. She once loved recklessly, was betrayed like she didn't exist, was forced to sleep with men to keep roles, and once stood on the edge of death, all because a man told her that's how Hollywood works. She's now naming names. 5 men who destroyed her career, her heart, and her life. Who was the first to drag her into the abyss? And will this truth shake Hollywood to its core? Let's begin. Diane Lane, the 13-year-old girl who stepped onto the Broadway stage and just 2 years later became a sex symbol cruelly contorted by Hollywood. That is Diane Lane, the muse with a heavenly face, sorrowful eyes, and a career drenched in blood, tears, and betrayal. She was once called the goddess of the silver screen, mentored by Coppola and honored by Time magazine as the face of the new America. But when the stage lights burned brightest, Diane became a bargaining chip in underground circles of power. In 1979, racy photos of her leaked when she was still very young, a scandal that split America into 2 raging sides. Yet instead of being protected, Diane was treated as someone who had brought the trouble upon herself. She once refused roles with explicit scenes, and the price she paid was being erased from major directors' casting lists. One even told her to her face, "If you won't lie down, you'll never rise up in Hollywood." Her first love stolen. Her marriage to Josh Brolin ended with a bruise on her face and a frantic 911 call, but Diane remained silent. Because when you're a woman in the entertainment industry, pain isn't something you share. It's something you hide beneath makeup. There was a time when Diane disappeared from the screen for nearly a decade. Rumors swirled that she had suffered a mental breakdown. Some whispered of a failed suicide attempt in Malibu. One article even stated, Diane Lane, a symbol both forgotten by Hollywood and destroyed by its most powerful men. But now she's back, not to act, not to be an icon, but to speak the truth, to name them one by one, and to expose 5 faces, the men who destroyed her youth, her career, and her trust. Who are they? And why has Diane never forgiven them? Step into the first chapter of this story and brace yourself for a Hollywood unmasking like no other. Enemy number 1. Christopher Lambert, the kiss of betrayal. When Diane Lane had just crossed into her 20s, she wasn't just Hollywood's brightest ingenue. She was a fragile heart searching for a safe place in a world full of traps. And that's when Christopher Lambert entered her life, a mature, charming, seasoned man and also a skilled predator. In 1984, the two met backstage at a Paramount party. By 1988, they were married. What seemed like the start of a new life, Diane left Hollywood behind, moved to Paris with her husband, and turned down major film offers to become a devoted wife. But while she paused everything for love, he used that love as a cover for his deceit. While Diane stayed home waiting for him to return from long trips, Lambert was having numerous affairs. Once, she found a hidden plane ticket inside a book with another woman's name on it. Worse yet, he betrayed her by sleeping with one of Diane's own female co-stars, someone she had introduced to him, trusted, and loved like a sister. Diane learned the truth from an anonymous note left in her car. Be careful what he does when your back is turned. But the deepest betrayal? Lambert was the one who leaked Diane's private photos to the European press, trying to revive his fading fame. Bikini shots from the beach, intimate moments splashed across headlines with cruel titles like The Fading Beauty of an American Goddess in Paris. And Diane crumbled. Not just from the lies, but because the man she thought was her safe haven became the first to drag her career into the mud, making her tabloid fodder. I don't hate him for leaving me. I hate him for choosing to leave me by smearing me in front of the entire world. Enemy number 2. Josh Brolin, the husband with a fist and a deadly silence. In 2003, when Diane Lane turned 38, she believed she had finally found solid ground. A man who had battled addiction, fallen hard, but was trying to rebuild his life. Josh Brolin. All of Hollywood dubbed it the marriage of redemption, two fractured souls seeking healing in each other's wounds. They married less than 6 months after dating. Diane turned down countless projects to focus fully on building a family. She once said, "I've been in too many wrong relationships. I believe Josh is the right one." But just 4 months after their wedding, police were called to their Los Angeles home. Diane was injured, her eyes filled with fear, while Josh stood at the door drunk, laughing as the officers arrived. The media exploded. Hollywood was in an uproar. But the most horrifying part? Diane dropped the charges just 48 hours later.
Why?
Because of pressure from both families, the studio, and a chilling warning from Josh's legal team. If you speak out, we'll dig into your past. And the one who will be ruined isn't Josh, it's your career. Diane chose silence, but that silence slowly killed her from within. She spent the next 4 years in a house without laughter, without roles, without anything but fear. And when she finally filed for divorce, Josh Brolin went to the press with a cold remark, "She needs a better script more than she needs a husband." It wasn't the punch that destroyed Diane Lane. It was the way all of Hollywood sided with a guilty man just because he was the golden boy of action films. The next man in Diane's story didn't hit, didn't cheat, didn't threaten. He consumed every piece of her pain with a sanctimonious smile. Enemy number 3, Liam Neeson, the false angel who swore he'd never make a woman cry. When Diane Lane entered her 40s, reeling from her high-profile divorce from Josh Brolin, she swore she'd never let her heart lead the way again. But then he appeared, Liam Neeson, with his warm, deep smile and the kind of embrace everyone believed was the safest in Hollywood. They met at a charity gala in New York in 2007. Liam, widowed, mature, introspective, kept repeating a line that melted women's hearts, "I don't act anymore. I just live honestly." For the first time, Diane allowed her heart to reopen. They strolled through Central Park together, shared red wine in Neeson's penthouse, and then a photo leaked, Liam kissing a much younger actress, 30 years Diane's junior, in Paris. Diane had believed he was in London filming. The betrayal wasn't just in the act. It was in how Liam handled it afterward. No apology, no explanation, just an 8-word message left behind, "I don't think I'm right for you." Diane vanished from the media for nearly 18 months. Not because of heartbreak, but because a man had lied with such tenderness that the whole world believed she was the problem. That was the moment Diane's career plummeted. She was quietly replaced in 2 film projects. One director even remarked, "Audiences won't sympathize with a woman left behind if she looks too strong." And the next man, an Oscar legend, a national treasure, but behind the curtain, he was the one who made sure Diane never dared to return to Broadway again. Enemy number 4, Morgan Freeman, the whispering king and the unseen touch on live television. No one ever suspected him. No one dared to, because he's an icon. America's storyteller. The voice that could hush an entire nation. But Diane Lane never forgot. In 2015, they appeared together at a prestigious awards ceremony in Los Angeles. Diane was presenting. Morgan Freeman stood beside her, poised with his trademark gentlemanly gaze, until suddenly, his hand slid onto the small of Diane's back. No one else saw it clearly, but Diane felt it like a cold sting through her skin. A fleeting moment, a passing glance, and then a whisper that froze her body. "You know, you remind all of us what we've lost, don't you?" She didn't respond. But that very night, Diane pulled out of a Broadway play contract, declined a major talk show appearance, and vanished from public events for 3 months. No one knew why. No one dared to ask, because behind the glowing red lights was a painful truth. If you speak up, you'll be branded the woman who accused America's beloved elder. From that point on, Diane Lane became a risk in Hollywood circles. Not because she lacked talent, but because she was too real. And that truth could burn down the monuments Hollywood wasn't ready to lose. But there's still one more, an actor who once called Diane the last true muse, only to rip apart every line of poetry they ever wrote together. The final name will leave you gasping. How could someone like him be so cruel? The final enemy, Josh Brolin, the bruise in the dark. Diane Lane once believed this man would be home, safe, strong, seasoned. A man who loved through actions, not hollow promises. But she was wrong. Bitterly, painfully wrong. In 2003, Diane and Josh Brolin married after a whirlwind romance. The media called them Hollywood's golden couple. But behind the doors of their Los Angeles home was a silent hell, a place where Diane couldn't cry and didn't dare to scream. Just 4 months after the wedding, Josh was arrested for domestic battery. Police were called after a violent altercation. Diane had visible bruises but refused to press charges. She quietly withdrew the complaint, and Hollywood quietly placed her on the list of weak women who couldn't hold a marriage together. But who knew that for years after, Diane was acting in the greatest performance of her life, not on screen, but every time she stepped outside, covering a swollen lip with lipstick, choosing long sleeves to hide the grip marks on her arms. Josh never apologized publicly. And Diane? She spoke only once in a small European magazine. I've learned how to forgive, but never how to forget. That marriage didn't kill Diane Lane's career, but it eroded the audience's trust, slowly fading her from lead roles, from award nominations, from the brilliant self she once was. And when asked at age 60 what she regrets the most, Diane Lane didn't mention the roles she turned down. She didn't talk about the Oscars that slipped away. She looked straight into the camera and said, "It's that I allowed them, those men, to enter my life." If you're still here, it means you followed Diane to the very edge of her pain. So help her do just one last thing. Share this video so the buried truths can breathe again. And if you want to uncover more dark secrets, more untold lives, hit subscribe, because the next story will take your breath away.